All right, so lesson 7.3, we are actually going to learn about the Pythagorean theorem. So this is actually pretty fun. I like this one. Okay, so when you look at a triangle, you have a side A, either of these can be A, B, C is your diagonal on any of them. Okay, so the vocabulary we are going to use is going to be hypotenuse, that's your C, that's your diagonal, the legs, and Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so right triangles, we have your legs are right here, and right here. Your hypotenuse is your C, that's your diagonal, and it will always be your diagonal. Okay, so the legs are the sides that form the right angle, and the hypotenuse is your diagonal. Okay, so if we have a triangle here, it's labeled ABC. Let's look at the legs. So we have your legs, because this is your right angle right here. So this is the leg, this one is a leg, and this is your hypotenuse. All right. So the size of this one is 1, 2, 3. The size of this one is 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to show you the formula to be able to figure out what it is. Okay. So your formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So that's a formula you're going to need to write down. So if I were you in your notes, I would draw a triangle and label it just like that. Don't forget to put your right triangle in there, and then write down the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So hit pause and write it down in your notes. Okay, so we're going to find the hypotenuse, which is your c squared. So how we do that is, here's our triangle right here. Okay, remember, this is A, this is B, this is C. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a squared is going to be, so 12 squared plus 16 squared equals c squared, or x, because it says x right there. You can do c squared, or we can, because it already says x, we can do an x. That's fine. So we can do x squared. Okay, so get your handy dandy little calculators and do 12 squared plus 16 squared is 400. So now we have 400 equals x squared. Now it can't be, your x cannot stay squared. We want our x to be just x. So the opposite of that side being squared is do the square root of 400. So the square root of 400 is 20. So our x right here is 20. Okay. All right. So let's look at this one. Mr. Parsha wants to build a new banister for his staircase. So we have our a square is 12 feet, so 12 squared, plus 5 squared equals x squared. We don't know what this is right here, so we'll just name it x, okay? So we have 12 squared plus 5 squared is 169 equals x squared. Well, that can't stay x squared. So the opposite of the squared on that side is the square root of this side. So the square root of 169 is 13. So x equals 13. Let's check it. And we are correct. Okay. All right. So now we still have a right angle, so we can still do it. So it's exactly the same. So you would do your a squared is going to be 7 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared or c squared. We can name it whatever we want to. So 7 squared is 49 plus 12 squared is 144 equals x squared. So 49 plus 104 is 193. So we have 193 equals x squared. Okay, so to get rid of the square on this side, we do the square root. So the square root of 193 is 13.89. But look up here. Remember, we got to read the whole thing. It says round to the nearest tenth. So if we get x equals 13.89, if we round it to the nearest tenth, it would be 13.9. And that is our answer. Okay. So now we're going to find a missing leg. So if you look at this one, we have our a squared and our b squared and our c equals c squared. So we know our c squared. So remember your formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Your a and b are your legs, your c is your hypothesis. So we know our hypothesis is 13. So 13 squared equals 12 squared plus a squared, because we don't know what the x miles right here is. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do our 13 squared is 169. Our 12 squared is 144. And then we have our a squared. So we're going to just solve this just like we would any equation, is move our 144 over. So that cancels. That would be a 5 and a 2. So a squared equals 25. So to get rid of that squared, you have to square root it. So a equals 5. So this leg right here is 5 miles. Okay. All right, so let's look at this one. So we have our hypotenuse, and our leg, and we're missing the leg right here. So let's set it up. We don't know our a squared. Okay, so we don't know our a squared. but our b squared is 1.5, and our hypotenuse is 2 squared. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, so 1.5 squared is going to be 2.25. 2 squared is 4 plus a squared. Move our 2.25 over. That will cancel. A squared equals 4 minus 2.25 is 1.75. Okay, to get rid of that square right here and just have an a, we have to do the square root. So the square root of 1.75 is, and look right here, we're rounding it to the nearest tenth of a mile. So a equals 1.32. If we round it to the nearest mile, it'd be 1.3. And that is your answer. So let's check it. Voila. Okay. All right. So we have a three-dimensional shape, but you can still see your triangle. So we know our a square. We don't know our b square, but our diagonal right here is our c square, and it's 17. So we can still write it. Remember, our formula is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we have 8 squared plus b squared, because right here would be our b, equals 17 squared. So 8 squared is 64. So we have 64 plus b squared equals 17 squared is 289. So 289. Okay, let's move our 64. Those cancel. My b squared comes down. So 289 minus 64 is 225. Okay, to get rid of the square right here, we have to do the square root. So the square root of 225 is 15. So my b equals 15. So now, all right, so here we go. Oh, and we could check it. Let's check it. So if we want to check it, we could do, let's see if 8 squared plus 15 squared equals 17 squared. Okay, so we have 8 squared plus 15 squared equals 289. So do the square root of 289, and that would be 17 squared. So it is correct. Okay, so here's our apply problem. So it says, what are some real-world examples of the Pythagorean theorem? So you guys can go on and watch the video, because if I play it, you won't be able to hear it. So go on and watch the video. So it's talking about the position from your dock to the position at 10 a.m. So really, this would be super, super easy to solve if we just did this and went down, went from this position, and we could draw a line just like that. And look, there's our right angle. So that would be A, B, and C. So now let's count and see how long our A is. So our A would be 1, 2, 3. Technically, it'd be a negative 3, right? But if we're just counting to see how long it is, okay, so if we do a negative 3, and we do positive because we're going up, so 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, it wouldn't matter because remember, when we write it down, it's going to be a negative 3 squared, and it's going to be plus 4 squared equals c squared. Okay, so even if you did a negative 3 and you did it squared, you're still going to get a 9 because remember, two negatives together make a positive. So 9 plus 16 equals c squared. So that's going to be 25 equals c squared. And to get rid of that squared, we do the square root. So c will be 5. So if she continues at that rate, how many hours will it take for her to be out of gasoline? 5 hours. Okay, so it's not 5 hours, but so she went, so if we read it up here, she has a motorboat with the average 3 miles per gallon, and it holds 15 gallons, okay? So when she leaves at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock, she is 3 miles west and 4 miles north. So if you do a straight line though, it will be 5 miles. So in an hour, she's gone 5 miles in 1 hour, okay? So if she can do 15 gallons, right? Or if it's 15 gallons and she averages about 3 miles per gallon, at this rate, how many hours will it take for her to be out of gasoline? So if she gets about 3 miles per gallon of gas, okay, so that would be in 1 hour she did 5 miles, right? So 2 hours she would do 10 miles. 3 hours she would do 15 miles, right? So let's see. So that would be 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. Okay. So I hope that makes sense. All right. Well, good luck. If you guys have any questions on your homework, let me know. And I'll talk to you guys all later. Oh, and I skipped over the proofs of a Pythagorean theorem. So if you guys want to go through the slides, well, not if you want to, but go through the slides and go to slide 19 and watch the video on how you do the proof of a Pythagorean theorem. Okay, now I'll see you later. Bye, guys.